pornographic material is outlawed in China. You can see people selling it on the street corner sometimes. I've seen it over and over and over again. Hey everybody, Deathblade here with another Chinese fantasy novel FAQ, and I bet you are intrigued by the title of this video, aren't you? Assuming you actually read the title. Before I get into it, I want to point out that this video is sponsored by my original cultivation series called The 9 Heavens and 10 Earths. The first book is The Heretic Peacekeeper, and it is already out. It's in ebook everywhere, and on Amazon it's available in paperback and also in hardcover. A beautiful cover art. This is a proof copy, so it has this kind of ugly not for resale part on it. That's obviously not in the final version. But anyway, you can order it on Amazon. Again, it is a cultivation series all devised by me, written in the style of Western fiction, but with all of my background of Chinese culture, language, and translation experience put into it. I've been getting great responses, so I think you will like it. If you like the stuff on my channel, check it out in the link in the description below or in the pinned comment. So we are going to talk about censorship. Now normally I don't get into like real life political or like social issues on this channel. This channel is about fun, and it's about Chinese fantasy novels and cultivators and magic and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really want to get into too serious topics. That said, you cannot talk about Chinese web literature without eventually touching on the subject of censorship. So as most of you probably know, in China everything is controlled very strictly by the central government, and that is especially true of information on the internet. Whether you use social media or whether you are involved in these web literature communities, the government is going to be very concerned with the things that you are putting out there. There have been entire series of novels that have been literally just canceled or taken away because they pushed too far in one direction or another. And of course in all kinds of media, whether it's television or movies, the government is going to say what is acceptable, what is not, and they will not hesitate to either cancel or remove content that they don't like, censor it, or just prohibit it from being distributed to begin with. One of the things that will happen in the web novels is that there are certain terms which get auto-censored. Now, I'm not a technical expert, and this isn't really my field of expertise to begin with, so I'm not going to try to postulate exactly how it works. But what I have noticed is that a lot of times the web literature content actually gets scraped from the parent site and then reposted on pirate sites. This is really, really common. Now, I think that a lot of the parent sites, they actually are able to bypass some of the censored terms that get taken out. I don't know how or why exactly that happens, but I have noticed differences between the official text on the parent site and the pirate site text. Now that said, the pirate site texts allow for easy copy and paste, so for translators that's really great to be able to have the actual raw text. So I tend to read the novels on the official parent site and then get the raw text from pirate sites. Now the problem with that is that you have to make sure that the texts match, and one of the things that happens is that those pirate sites, I've noticed, they have auto-censoring. So there will be terms that actually remain in the live version on the parent site but are auto-scraped from the pirate text. Now as a translator, this can be very frustrating because if I'm working from the raw text from a pirate site, then sometimes randomly you'll come across little sections of the text which have stars, and there are characters that are removed. Sometimes it's obvious what they are, sometimes it's not. Sometimes throughout the years I have had to go to my wife to ask for help. Like I said, I try to read the novel from the original site anyway, so sometimes I actually know ahead of time, or I should say I've read it ahead of time, the real version, and then I encounter the pirate version that has redacted text, and I can kind of know what it is. There are a few terms that I have noticed over the years that come up over and over and over again across multiple works, across multiple authors. And so I've decided to reveal those in this video. Now I want to point out this is not some sort of scientific explanation. I didn't run any analysis to see the frequency of these censored terms. I just noticed the same thing coming up over and over again, and so I took note of it, and then that's how I've come up with the content for this video. There's no particular order in terms of the frequency. I'm just going to reveal them to you in the order that I think is the most interesting, with the last one being kind of a little bit funny. So the first term that gets censored all the time, and it's very frustrating, is ba jiu. So ba means 8, jiu means 9. 8, 9 get censored all the time. This is actually very common because the authors will many times say that there's a number of people, and they'll say there's 8 or 9 people, something like that. Or there'll be just lists of numbers and 8 and 9 happen to be next to each other. Now why would 8 and 9 be censored? This is my understanding. If anyone out there knows of another explanation, please feel free to pop it into the comments below. But my understanding is that 8 and 9 is censored on Chinese media because of the 1989 Tiananmen Square incident. If you are not familiar with the history of modern China, this was a pivotal event event in which there was this huge protest, and it ended with the Chinese government sending in the army for all intents and purposes and clearing out everybody. People died. There was a huge crackdown. It led to a really bad situation. It led to the famous picture that probably most of you have seen if you know much about the history of China, of the tank man, the guy standing in the street in front of a line of tanks approaching him. I won't go into too much details about that incident itself. You can just Google it if you want. Suffice it to say that it was not something that China was very interested in the world knowing about or knowing a lot about, and at the same time, they don't want the citizens of their own country to know about it. In my experience, almost nobody really knows about it in China. They maybe have heard about it, and that's about it. The government does not want people talking about it. They don't want information being spread about it on the internet. I dealt with a lot of students during my time in China, teaching college students, adults, children, and everything, and the vast majority don't know about this. It's also something that if you are in China, you would be wise not to be going around talking about. There were times in China when I said the wrong thing. I was teaching world culture and history or something, and I talked a lot about religion in one class. It was in the textbook, but I got reported to the local communist cadre or whatever, and I got talked to about what I was supposed to say and what I was not supposed to say. So anyway, that's one of the top terms, bajiu, relating to a historical and political incident that is very sensitive in China. The next one is actually kind of similar, and that one is du-li. Du-li means independence. This is a word that apparently Chinese government is not interested in seeing widely used on the internet. I have seen it removed from the text of the novels I translated over and over and over again, to the point where it started to stand out on this list as one of the top 3. Now, obviously, there are political ramifications. The status of places like Taiwan and Hong Kong are very sensitive topics, especially Taiwan, and so the issue of independence is linked up with that. Is Taiwan independent from China? Now, I would like to request that please let's not turn the comment section of this video into any kind of political discussion about that. This is not the point of my channel. I really don't want to see arguments about people going back and forth about Taiwan. It's extremely sensitive, whether you're talking to people from the mainland of China or outside. Different people have different opinions about it, and you can get into very hot water very quickly when you get into these discussions. So let's not, on my channel, please, let's not get into the issue of Taiwan's status. But the fact remains that that status is very sensitive and carries over into the web novel stuff. I think that du-li might not just have to do with Taiwan. There are other ramifications as well. It's obviously such an important term that it has been targeted for censorship, and it does get censored all the time. Final one is actually kind of funny. This term is rou shan. Now, rou shan, rou means meat and shan means the body, and rou shan literally just means the fleshly body. I have a whole video talking about the fleshly body, which I'll link up here. In the cultivation novels, there's generally a distinction between like the spiritual or the inner self, the mind, the psyche, and then the physical body. And so it's common for the writers to distinguish that in the story. There's a lot of times even cultivators who cultivate the fleshly body. They're body cultivators, like muscles and physical strength and things like that. Well, guess what? That term roshan gets pulled out because it actually can have kind of a sexual connotation. You may or may not know that pornographic material is outlawed in China. It is not impossible to get it. Like, you can see people selling it on the street corner sometimes, but you're not going to find it easily online, and the government does a lot to make sure it doesn't get distributed. And I'm pretty sure that this is a term associated with that. It sounds kind of licentious to some degree, and so it gets targeted and pulled out, and I've seen it over and over and over again. So those are the top 3 most censored terms in Chinese web literature that I have encountered. Again, I want to qualify this by saying that I didn't do any kind of like data poll or anything like that. If you are a translator or you have insight into this, I would love to hear your opinion. If there's anything I missed or something that you've noticed that gets censored out a lot. If you do have other insights or opinions just in general, I'd love to hear them. Again, I do want to keep the comments of this video, if at all possible, in a light-hearted tone, and let's not get into any kind of dramatic discussions. Finally, check out my novel, The Heretic Peacekeeper, which is book 1 of the 9 Heavens and 10 Earths, and that is out on Amazon and everywhere else. And that's it for this video. I'll see you next time. Godzilla. It's so uncomfortable in this position.
It's so not comfortable, you should do a video in bed.